Uh, this past fall, I was fortunate to make a trip around the world. I went to 8 cities, 7 countries. And midway through the travel, got a call from a sister saying my dad had been taken to the hospital. And I was a little worried at a particular time that he wasn't going to make it because they wasn't quite sure what the diagnosis was. But fortunately, they released him, and I was so they're going to have to cut the trip short. But as I was going around the world, my dad was finishing his trip within the world. Yeah. So we're kind of opposed in size. He's 5'6", 150 pounds. I'm 6'1", 250 pounds. So we're different in size and features and so forth, but much the same. My father had a lot of piss and vinegar in him. I do as well, and I think all leaders do. But nonetheless, I completed the trip and came home, and as soon as I got back, 2 days after I got back in the States, I had to rush him back to the hospital where he had intestinal surgery. Then I came up, and I stayed 4.5 months up there. Took off, for what I was doing, spent 4 months to rehab him. He was getting better, getting stronger and so forth. And I finally realized when he was back to himself, we got into an argument. About 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, he came to use the restroom, and we had a discussion earlier. I can't remember what it was, but I tore him up a little bit, I tore him up, but he came in and he started in on the conversation. At 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I said, man, look, it's 4 o'clock. And I said, so you bringing this energy into me. But at any rate, the moral to the story is that when he was on fire, he was on fire. He delivered it. And that's the story that I'm sticking with. And it's a lot of them. I mean, it's a lot. A lot of piss and vinegar. But he was the man.
It's hard to follow Dwight, huh? I'm Bobby Eaton Jr. And me and my daddy had boxing gloves. We would box. I'd be on and off and on and off in our lives, And as this passing, I had to really realize something. I'm just like him. I'm just like my daddy. A lot of him is in me. That's why we had conflict, at times and stuff. But I learned so much. I heard them stories that y'all heard down on Greenwood so many times coming up. I remember times when I was a little boy and I'd be in the barber shop and my grandfather would be cutting hair, my Uncle Jerry would be in the middle, and my daddy would be on the end, and Homer Johnson, Bernard McIntyre, Ray Freeman, all of them would be in there arguing and fussing. Just arguing and fussing. They'd be going back and forth. No, man, oh yeah, we got to do this. We got to do that. They were strategizing how to go against those white restaurants that wouldn't allow blacks to. And I was a little boy. I was sitting up in there, and I used to hear this stuff, hear these stories, and it got inside me. So throughout my travels around the world, some of y'all know I'm a musician, and I've traveled around the world, and I played with the late Natalie Cole, Ike Tina Turner, Bobby Womack. I was doing all that back in the late 70s, 80s, playing that music. I was traveling around, and my daddy was still here in Tulsa, talking that talk. Talking that, I come back to Tulsa, and I opened up the radio station because there wasn't any black communications and broadcast journalism. So, out of the family spot, I opened up a radio station. Now I've grown. But my daddy talked that talk. Down at McDonald's, he'd be down there arguing and talking with them. Then he'd go down to Greenwood, down there with Tony and Cody and Gina and them, talking to them, arguing and talking that talk to whoever would listen to him. you know. But I sit back and I say, man, my daddy was a bad man. My daddy was knowledgeable. He knew a lot. His head was full, you know, of blackness. He said, Bobby Jr., how can you know where to go unless you know where you come from? I thought about that. I said, how can I go forward if I don't know where I come from? You know, we all come from Africa. And I need to know that. I need to know this history. Not the lies that we've been told, but the history. And my daddy made sure. He said, you know what? Also, Bobby, when black folks get $2 past bus fare, you know, they think they didn't arrive. And I used to say, wow, you know. And so he used to say that all the time. You know, stuff. He used to tell these different stories and stuff. And I got a lot of them stories within me. Now, I'm not my daddy. I'm a product of my daddy. And I will continue to do the work that he put in me. So thank you.